Dink, this is God. Drop Quan Chi, he sucks ass.
What?
Accept your death.
So we are back in it every year around this time since the early 2000s is EVO season. People are prepping for EVO. Everyone talks about what kind of reveals they're going to see, all that kind of stuff. Mortal Kombat is in a little bit of a different spot when it comes to EVO than it usually is, but we'll get into that. And then, of course, I've even myself prepping. I've decided to switch it up a bit. Drop the old bald guy. I've been playing a little bit of
the powdered donut.
Powdered
You moving
donut.
on for the what are we calling our cookies and cream or something?
Oh, powdered donuts to cookies and cream. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I just feel forced. And I was talking earlier in the Discord about this. I don't want to be someone who's sitting here just repeatedly crapping on my character over and over again to the point where it gets annoying. But I mean, I can't do it. If I'm this is probably going to be the last time that I go to EVO for the foreseeable future. So I want to be somewhat competitive, and I actually am excited to champion Shujinko for the first time in 20 years. So I think I'm a little bit more excited for that than I would have been for Quan. Anyway. Ideally both, but I mean, I take what I can get, right?
So are you this is just for EVO, right? You're still playing Quan outside of that. The Sindel thing's not going to keep going after EVO's over or whatever. It's just to get you through EVO, or what? Is this not really playing Quan till further notice?
I would say probably just for EVO. Like, I'm not going to completely drop Sindel and go back to Quan, but like anything competitive that I do, I will probably be using Sindel until Quan Chi gets some changes.
Keep her crispy.
Yeah. Like I said, I think she's Shujinko's best pairing, and I want to be Shujinko main first and the main character second, kind of.
And that's what you've been talking about since before the game even came out, right? I'm gonna be a Shujinko main.
Yeah.
That first day where I'll talk on the Discord, you're like, do you think anyone's going to consider themselves like a cameo main and not like main a character, but they main a cameo?
Right.
But it's you.
It's me. I ended up doing
prophecy.
That. Right. And then, I was saying this on my stream last night too, that like, it's weird that like when I was like, oh yeah, I want to be like the best Shujinko guy, I didn't actually think I would be the literal only person playing this cameo, which is cool. I like that. It's kind of my thing. So hopefully I can do well and show off at EVO. But before we get too far into that, there's just a couple comments that we should go through like we usually do every week.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So first one here we have Terry .1428. Great podcast, honestly the best. Appreciate it. On the next episode, I'd love to see y'all discuss traditional fighting game archetypes within the context of MK1 and NRS games as a whole. I think this is an interesting talking point because I kind of feel like NRS has kind of dropped the ball on archetypes on numerous occasions. Like they just have in their games too many characters play the same way. MK11 was a perfect example of that. How like everyone was strike throw. That was just literally the game in general. There was really no archetypes in that game. MK1 did that a little bit better because of the cameos and stuff, but I mean the archetypes are like unsafe stuff, like double-digit unsafe stuff into Kano Knives or Striker. Like that seems to be like an archetype, and there's...
Sure, but in MK1, for the first time, we have a puppet character.
That is true.
They've never done anything like that before, and that was a lot of the initial appeal, especially since Kenshi was in the beta, so people got to try him, like, at the first opportunity and stuff,
That was very smart.
But there's no, true grappler in MK1.
Unless you're fighting
like a traditional sense.
Yeah, not like a Zangief or something like that. I mean, if you're fighting Reiko as Shujinko, then any character is a grappler against Reiko. You get ticks off everything.
Right, and that's like one grab, right? It's a mid-command grab, so it can't be tech, but what's missing are other traditional sort of like grappler tools. Like they usually have slower movement to neutral because they hit, harder. They have a multitude of grabs, not just the one, right? They might have like a main grab, but they have other sorts of grabs that they mix it up with sometimes, or they have neutral poke sorts of like games going on, but that's kind of like a consequence of the cameo system, right? You can't just You know, what are they going to do? Reduce your walk forward speed as they're taking away 50 of your health or giving you 100 health or
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah. No,
in
that's
that
true.
situation. So I feel like it's just a consequence of the design, and you know, NRS kind of likes to do their own thing or their own versions of traditional things, like we were talking about throws earlier. I won't get into it again, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. They definitely do their own thing. That's for sure. But I mean, I feel like MK1, I don't know if it's traditional archetypes, but there definitely are different ways you can play the game. I feel like zoning is weak, though, in Mortal Kombat 1, like almost
zoning's
non-existent.
weak, but NRS is really good at, like, if you like the hit and run archetype, and I think Melina's like a really good example, right? You convert, you get your punish or your pressure, you back off, and you kind of just do it all over again. You're kind of bobbing like in and out. It depends on your cameo pairing and stuff like that. Or, you know, we have like very intensive rush down in this game.
Yes, that's true.
So that's something that NRS definitely likes, rush down archetypes.
Yeah, they do
It'd
that
be
very
cool to
well.
go into this like more thoroughly, like really think about it and like flesh it out and talk about it like more in depth. But that's a good comment.
I feel like we could probably do like an episode kind of going over the games and kind of
Yeah,
seeing.
or like
So
a chunk of it, like on a slow news week or something like that. Kind of like
yeah,
come back to that and talk to that, because I think it's like compared to Injustice 2, which has like so much variety, so
oh,
much
we could,
playstyle
yeah,
variety, and just a huge spectrum of archetypes. So
yeah,
that's a good kind of like lens, because it's, you know, made by the same people and stuff. So
yeah, very similar. So I think that's a good comment. I think we'll take you up on that. Probably not on this one today, but we touched it a little bit for you. But yeah, in the future, I think we might make a episode going over all of those things, a little magnifying glass kind of a thing. So good comment. Appreciate you. Jake Katsunye says, was a good listen. I also think the patch was good, but Homelander is definitely still broken. Making his fly punch actually punishable would probably help. I think the Johnny changes were good as well, but I still believe he's top 1 personally. It would be weird for him to not be top tier though. The Homelander thing is kind of funny because he's got that flying punch that he can like cancel. He can cancel into his down 1, which seems really unintentional.
unintended, yeah.
Yeah, like that's just a really weird thing. So I definitely agree with that. I'm assuming that will be changed in the next update they have.
That character's kind of a mess, isn't he?
He's just from top to bottom, just absolute mess. And then we're gonna go over that a little bit more as Evo's coming up here. The Johnny being top tier, I kind of agree with you. Johnny like is just always top tier. Like I would say MKX was probably his worst showing out of the last NRS games, so like MK11, MK9, MK1. He's just been top 5 character consistently.
Well, let's go back to the previous comment, right? It's because NRS likes Rushdown. The reason he was so weak at MKX is because literally everybody was Rushdown in that game, just like everyone was Strike Throw in MK11.
Yeah, it's true.
Right, but the way that these games are designed and meant to be played, and you know, I feel like they're kind of developed like as a core character, almost with Rushdown in mind, and then working around that, like fitting everything else into that framework.
That's true. And yeah, that's kind of where my mind was going too. Is like, yeah, they like their rushdown characters, so of course Johnny's gonna be a top tier in a game with rushdown characters are king. So yeah, I agree. I agree with both your points. And yeah, we got more to go over with Homelander here in a minute. Last comment. FR Stack 3006. Good luck at EVO Dink. I'm going to need it. I really want to do well, and I'm definitely prepping hard, playing and grinding in ways that I haven't really grinded the game in a very long time. So with a character that I'm confident in now. So I'm going to do my best to do well and make y'all proud, as best I can. But from that, I think we should get into our EVO conversation, because I think that's a good jumping off point. The first thing that I wanted to go over was the actual entrant numbers. This was a talking point for everybody when they came out, and you look at all the games and all the entrants, and right down there, second to last, is Mortal Kombat 1, 645 entrants. Isn't that something? To be fair, that is about double what Combo Breaker got. But I suppose that is like the world championship, right?
Yeah, well, these are record-breaking EVO numbers in general, period. So just the ratio of that, you know, you could kind of like expect that maybe, but I don't feel like Mortal Kombat's ever been really strong on the competitive front, right? As far as viewership and entrance and stuff. And this game came out 6 months before it would normally come out. So,
Yeah.
right, it's usually that whole sequence. We talked about this a little bit earlier before we started recording, right? You've got Combo Breaker over Memorial Day weekend, and then you have CEO in like July, and then or June or July, and then Evo's usually the first week of August. It's in late July this year, but
Yep.
that's like right off the ass of the release, right? So hype is really really high, and a lot of people are engaged and interested. They're not disenfranchised yet.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right.
You know,
I think that plays a big part of it because, yeah, usually Mortal Kombat comes out in April, and I believe that at one point in time, MK1 was probably slated to release in April, because I don't know, it felt like they dumped a lot of stuff like early in that year, and then they just kind of had to push it off. Which, I mean, who who knows what this game would have looked like if they released it in April? Let's be real here. So I'm glad they delayed it a little bit. But yeah, that definitely plays a big role. And actually, I'm surprised we got this many entrants, to be honest. When ECT, which was the very first major for Mortal Kombat 1, I think it had 227 entrants, I want to say. And that was like 3 weeks after the game released. So like, mind you, it wasn't announced as like a pro league event until like 2 weeks beforehand, which was kind of dumb. But it was like the first major event, and even getting those numbers. And I think Combo Breaker got closer to 300, maybe. So, I mean, the numbers haven't been huge.
And I think if you have that crossover graphic, which I want to talk about, I actually haven't looked at the numbers yet, but I already kind of like am theorizing, with some of these entrant numbers, right? Because Mortal Kombat does not have a presence like in the Eastern world. It's largely like NA and EU, now Africa, Middle East, and stuff like that, but not like Japan or any of those big markets. And that's like Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8 and Strive. These are like behemoths, right? Especially
Huge.
like Capcom and Bandai, Tekken 8 sort of stuff. So there's no doubt that the Mortal Kombat one looks really bad in contrast to say like the top three numbers. Grand Blue, if I'm not mistaken, so this is Grand Blue versus Rising's very first Evo, and it's kind of like a 0.5 upgrade from just Grand Blue versus that we started playing like right before COVID, which I think kind of like screwed that game out of its
I would agree.
potential.
I would agree.
Everyone's forced into like online stuff, and the netcode was ass. It was like so
Terrible.
bad. But I missed that first Evo and all of that sort of stuff. So I think there's a lot of hype there, and there's a lot of crossover. I bet the crossover on that game is crazy between
for
Strive
sure.
and Street Fighter and Tekken 8.
Yeah, like I
Third Strike beating Mortal Kombat though. That's kind of but
That's a
again,
blow up.
Street Fighter is a behemoth, and there's a lot of nostalgia, and
Yeah, like it'd be like if you had like MKX at like Combo Breaker, right? Like people played it, and then they're probably just gonna mash around anyway. So, like the crossover thing, like we're talking about, right? So that would be.
No one's talking about how much more entrants it has than King of Fighters, though. Everyone's just
I
talking
know,
about
right?
how it's because it's only 3 digits instead of 4, or whatever people are like. But I agree. It is. I think it's deceptive. The numbers are probably low, but I think they look worse than they really are, like in perspective to previous games and release windows and all of that sort of stuff.
It's on par with how Mortal Kombat should perform. I don't think it's really any different. This was just a really bad time to release a fighting game with like Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8, Strive, Grant, like all these games just all coming out within the window of like before Evo kind of a thing, right? Like Mortal Kombat just didn't really stand a chance from the beginning. It had to be an absolutely like blow you away game in order to do so, and it did not do that, unfortunately.
So 57% of King of Fighter 15 entrants are also in the Street Fighter 6 bracket, right? No one's flying out to go play King of Fighters, right? They're playing it because they're there anyway.
I'm like super
Mortal
surprised.
Kombat, 38% Street Fighter 6, 41%, almost 42% for Tekken 8. That does not surprise me at all. Neither do the other numbers. I feel like a lot of Mortal Kombat players play all three of the major games. A lot of them do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I would agree. I
and if you
mean,
don't, I would advise at least trying it. It's actually really fun, and it's very enlightening to kind of see what's the same. Like what? Okay, so this is fighting games in general, and this is niche to the fighting game that I actually play. You know, or it's a different flavor of this sort of thing, or whatever. You know.
I love playing different fighting games, and I feel like whenever I play a different game, it teaches me something about my main game, Mortal Kombat, that like I didn't know before, or a skill set that I didn't necessarily use before. Because I try like every game. Like I've got Street Fighter 6, I've got Tekken 8, Guilty Gear Strive, Grand Blue Versus. I've got all those games. The only like game on here that I really don't, well, Under Night, I guess I don't have, and then King of Fighters. King of Fighters is like probably the only fighting game franchise that I've never played. I don't really care to play it. I don't really care to watch it. Don't really know much about it. Maybe that's why it's on the bottom of the list. I don't know.
Maybe, but it has like an execution barrier. I feel like that game has a skill ceiling, which is kind of like a deterrent in general, especially in this day and age, as everyone's trying to make their game more accessible.
Right.
Modern controls in Street Fighter, what's happening in the new Fatal Fury, with their easier controls, whatever they're calling it. Tekken's got a similar sort of thing. If you just kind of like want to hit buttons for auto combos and things like that. So
just kind of appealing to
Mortal
more
Kombat's
casual.
already kind of that way. I remember somebody asking Tyler Lansdowne before the game came out if there's going to be like a modern controls or whatever. He's like, "What? The game's already kind of that way, right? It's pretty straightforward."
Yeah, it just works like a little bit differently mechanically than other games, and then there's the niche things with throws being 50-50s and highs as opposed to mids
and duckable, right? And then you've got things like one of the guys from my local, he was getting into Mortal Kombat. He's mainly a Street Fighter player, and somebody did a down one on this is Mortal Kombat 11, right? Down one on block into throw, classic. And he goes, "Oh, tick throw," and it's like, well, no,
not really.
Yeah, in Street Fighter, it would be right. That's what like a tick throw, because the recovery on jabs is so fast. You can basically have it blocked, and you're in a situation where you're getting like in a because you can chain your jabs too, right? So while you're just expecting another jab to come out, you get thrown, and that's just something you accept as a Street Fighter player. Right. Whereas like an NRS, a tick throw is like more defined, like somebody blocks the button, you cancel into the throw, and they're not in block stun or hit stun, and so they get thrown, right? That's why it only works on certain sorts of buttons, depends on the cancel window and the advantage, the block advantage and stuff like that. So we call it different. It's the same. We have the same words, but they don't quite mean,
the same thing. Yeah. Because
they live in the same neighborhood, but
I like that. Live in the same neighborhood. Yeah. Cause and there's also little things too. Like with Street Fighter 6, I've noticed, as opposed to like MK1, if I press a button and somebody does their fatal blow, at MK1, there's a little bit of a buffer window where I can like negate pressing that button and block. Kind of a weird mechanic, to be honest, but I mean, it saved my ass numerous times. So I mean, I like it. That does not exist in Street Fighter 6. You know how many times I was hit by supers because I pressed the button? I'm like, oh, well, where's my buffer window? Oh no.
Well, and most supers have invulnerability of some sort, whether it's strike or throw or projectile or full invulnerability, whatever it may be. And in this game, you are just pants down and exposed for, I don't know how many frames it is, like 8 or something, 6 or 8. I used to know. It wasn't that bad in the beta. Well, in the beta, I think they buffed it. It was really bad in the beta. I don't think I got hit with a single fatal blow. And with the really long, it doesn't come from out of nowhere like it did in MK11. You got the big, screen freeze that eats your input that you're in the middle, like that you were just talking about, right?
Right. Yeah, like an Injustice kind of a thing.
But it won't beat meaties, right? Like it's not a good wake-up option unless your opponent's not timing meaties or they go for...
That's true. So like there's little things like that kind of help you tighten up different aspects of your game as you're playing it. Tekken 8 I didn't spend a whole lot of time for because I think I was also like kind of thinking about Combo Breaker at the same time too, and I was just like looked at the roster and I was like, I do not want to learn all of these matchups.
I agree. Like fighting games, I think to get and stay good at fighting games, it is definitely like a time investment. And then a lot of that is like, you learn your character, but you have to know matchups, and the nuance of certain matchups. Basic game plan will only get you so far, but if you want to get better than that, and it's just like there's so many characters. And Street Fighter was the exact opposite. It launched with a really small roster. So it wasn't as intimidating like in that regard. But I think that's the biggest drawback for me for Tekken. It's because I like to play like at a level beyond like casually good. I like to know what's going on, and I like to go to practice mode and figure out some tech or whatever. And it's just like I don't want to learn 45 matchups or whatever. I'm just.
And I think that kind of like relates into how Tekken is like a legacy game, because a lot of the people, although the characters won't be exactly the same, it'll be a little bit easier for like, it sounds like, from what I understand, I could be totally wrong here, but I think like game plan for a certain extent is like this similar.
Not anymore. I think lead up to Tekken 7, you would have been right, but a lot of legacy players were having a really hard time adjusting, and some still are transitioning just because the game is so much less defensive than it was. And they've made some adjustments since the game has come out and stuff, but it's totally different. You're almost betrayed by your legacy knowledge because the frame data is so different. And then you've got like they call big Tekken, small Tekken, like because it's like you don't want to learn 100 moves for 45 characters and stuff, right? But there's general things to know, like, this type of universal move that every character has, you can plan on being, this startup and this on block, sort of thing. And so there's ways to kind of like reduce it and compartmentalize it, but it's still like super daunting.
And then there was a couple new mechanics, I think, that they put in that game that weren't insanely popular. Mind you, Street Fighter had the same thing, I think, initially with Drive. Was it Drive Rush that people were kind of bitching about a bit?
Drive in general, yeah. A lot of like the parries and Drive Rush and Street Fighter were like a big thing. Drive Impact, and people just have to adjust to that, but they do adjust to it.
Yeah, I didn't find it too bad when I played, but I haven't played in a while, so I don't know if they've changed it or whatnot.
It can be nasty, and I mean, it's basically the run button from MKX that you get is just a different resource sort of thing, and that same resource is tied into some of your defense, and it's going to be your damage conversions, or at least starting the conversion sometimes and stuff. So it's cool the way that it's set up, and Tekken added the heat system and stuff. So they definitely. NRS has been doing the aggressive thing for a long time. In MK1, it was the first time they were like, you know what, we're going to give you what you want. And because that's what everyone was complaining about in Injustice 2 and MKX was too
fast,
too
too
YOLO,
chaotic.
too just guess better, bro. Let's go gambling. And so they did the exact opposite and slowed it way down and gave us that slower neutral footsies game that we were asking for, but it just kind of turned into, I don't know, it didn't quite strike. Didn't quite hit the same way, and then it just turned into strike throw like sort of thing. I was like, this is like way worse than I would rather be playing MKX. I feel like
and that's kind of how I feel too. Is like MKX was just so wild and like crazy, and like 2 guesses into your whole health bar and that's it. And then MK11.
It was so fun. There was so much variety of characters, and just in Triborg itself, and the 4 variations of Triborg had, I feel like, way broader of a spectrum of playstyle than the whole roster of MK11. I'm probably being, hyperbolic or whatever, but
I mean, you're not wrong.
Not that hyperbolic.
So, I mean, Cyrax and Cybersub weren't very good, but like Sector and Smoke were both like very competitively
Just
viable.
the tools, what they did with the same character 4 times.
So smart.
You give them the same sort of norm. It's kind of what they did with the Turtles in Injustice 2, where you give them, it was very Triborgy what they did. Some normals are different, like off strings or something, or maybe they've got like a special forward 3 or back 3, like in Injustice 2, like the Turtles and stuff. But, lots of other stuff is the same. And, on this input in Cyrax, you get a bomb, and in this input with Smoke, you get something else, or, I love Triborg. I think that is like one of the coolest fighting game characters of all time.
That was such a smart way to implement 4 different characters. And I remember watching the combat cast when they were doing it, and like right at the end he just like flashes like Cybersub on the screen. He's like, oh, Tyler's like, well, what was that? Oh, I don't know. And everyone's like, what? Cybersub too? Like, Which technically,
Dude, it was still like old MK secrets, even though it wasn't a secret, right? Because you had to. That's very variationless Triborg. You know,
yeah,
now there's plenty of people who didn't even know that you could select a character without a variation.
variationless Kenji. That was probably the worst character in that game.
There was a guy that used to be in Mr. Aquaman's MKX things like all the time that always do variationless Kotal Khan. So he didn't have any armor. He didn't have
Oh, really? Damn.
no command grab, no nothing, right? No totems. But you know, it's like doing a soul level 1 in Dark Souls or something.
Yeah.
Just challenge yourself.
Yeah. I played a little bit of variationless Quan a couple times in MKX, and like, I don't know. He's still good. He's got trance and still got mix and all that kind of stuff, combos. But I mean, once you play something like Sorcerer or Summoner, it's just like, obviously, just like, yeah, overshadows it. I didn't mind the variations, to be honest. I liked the one takeaway that I actually did like from the MK11 was like the customization of moves. I thought that if the game overall was better, that would have been really cool. I really like that idea as opposed to variations. But I like having different ways.
Custom variations is what they called it, right? And this,
I liked that idea.
I feel like cameos is the natural evolution of that. They're like, well, it didn't really work. Like even all the other circumstances of COVID and all that stuff, I'm not sure. And then that kind of probably turned into the cameo sort of thing, which is kind of an elaboration on it. Not really like customization, but it's like mixing and matching your character with something else to where the matchup's not the same.
Yeah, like it's everyone's got like this pool of tools, and everyone can just pick out whatever tool they want for their character.
You have to know what the character can do, you have to know what the cameo can do, and you have to know what their synergy is, like what you're in for, like what they can do for each other, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's what made Shujinko such a time sink for me. It's like, and especially once they added moves and everything for him, it's like, okay, well, you got to go through every matchup, see how the gravity is for every different combo, see how it works with your
I think that's why he's not more popular.
He takes a lot, but like the payoff is good. He just has so many different things that you can use with him, and so many different. He's like 4 cameos in one. He does combos, he does zoning, he does mix, he does safety.
I've messed around with him. I feel like you can tell when you have good synergy or the gravity was intended or like whatever. It's like, do my normal combo paths work? Like
Right.
when I play Melina, sometimes I get a standing 4 into ball roll. Sometimes I can get a standing 4 or just a 2-1 into ball roll. Sometimes I can get a standing 4 and then a 1-2 into ball roll. Like say like after a launch or something that cameo would give you. Or you go right into a jump in and then do that combo path that starts with the air string. And so you kind of experiment with all of those things and you can kind of see it all fall into place. It's like, yep, okay. So this gives me, it's literally my regular combo path. It's just a matter of keeping track which one it is, depending on the spacing and all of that stuff. And I like those are indications of like high synergy stuff. I'm not sure how consistent that is across the roster, but I feel like that's a lot of Shujinko. Because sometimes they're far, sometimes they're close. This character gives you this kind of weird launch. This character gives you a really straightforward one.
Yeah, and that's like
this one you got to cut out a part of a combo altogether, you know, sort of stuff.
And that's like where like you can tell like a character works, and that's one thing that's like really sick with Quan Chi Shujinko is that like that standing 4. There's a lot of instances where that standing 4 can create a combo from like almost anywhere on screen. Like if you're playing against Scorpion, for example, and Scorpion does a spear, you duck the spear and whiff punish with Quan standing 4 into the Shujinko spear, and that will punish from full screen anywhere. Like literally anywhere. So Scorpion has to be really, really careful about doing that spear, even if he's at a distance where he would usually be safe. And the same thing is similar with Rain, with because they added the steal for Rain with the little portal like Master of Storm's lightning thing. So his standing 4 can combo into the Rain combo launcher, and even if Rain's playing with Sub-Zero.
What move?
You know when Rain like he puts his 2 portals out and then like he creates like a bang between them kind of a thing?
Oh, I
well,
guess.
If he can't do it, Shujinko can, which would make sense. But so that's a launcher from it's like a 3/4 screen launcher. So with Quan standing 4, unless Rain is like full screen, you could standing 4 combo into that. And then even if you wanted to do it raw, like without the standing 4, it's not considered a projectile, so it'll hit through Sub-Zero armor, anti-projectile armor. So there's things like that that's just super cool with the character, like super nuanced, those types of things. Oh my god, the Ermac steals, those are crazy, especially now with Sindel, where like you like do the 2-bar like low launcher with Shujinko, and then you can call Shujinko back, and then you do like the Queen's Command or whatever to have him come back faster to make it even easier to do the second steal. Oh my god.
All right, so let's timestamp this, right? Let's have a discussion about, like we talked about it earlier, right? The transition from Quan to Sindel or whatever, but let's talk about for a couple minutes what it is that you think Sindel brings to the table. Not necessarily that Quan Chi doesn't. Let's just not even talk about Quan Chi, right?
All right.
What is it about Sindel that you feel like not just fits your play style, but you talk about the Shujinko synergy and all that stuff. What is it that you think is unique to Sindel? Why you're not playing somebody else?
The main reason that I chose Sindel is for the length of her combos and the amount of damage that she can do. So, and also the different combo paths. I think Sindel, probably Melina, I mean, to some extent, all the Adenians, like they have just...
Sindel is super versatile, right? Like her combo pathing.
Exactly. So she has, and she's one of the few characters that actually has like her own combo extending restand with the Scream. So that's
so good.
That can just like extend things like crazy. So I mean, depending on how you want it to path things, if you get like an air to air, you do the restand, you end it with a Shujinko thing. And like every single little hit that you can get with her will somehow combo into Shujinko almost every single time, whether it's just the 1-bar steal or a 2-bar steal for a launcher just to get the extra damage. She's got that Queen's Command again. I was saying, where you can call him back a little bit faster. It's not huge for Shujinko, like it's maybe half a second, but I mean, it's something. If you get some time when you can pull that out, I mean, it's definitely useful. So
how are you getting your damage? Are you just hit confirming into damage usually? Like what kind of... Shujinko doesn't give you any sort of extra mix-ups or anything like that, right? I guess depending on the matchup and what he steals and stuff, but how are you mixing up with Sindel in general without something like a low Lao hat or something that we usually see paired with her, or a bomb setup with Cyrex or something? Like how are you opening people up?
Yeah, so like here's the thing that people say is that Shujinko needs mix. Shujinko is the mix. The mix is whether he's coming out or not. So I mean, you could do forward 1, which is that annoying 3 hitting string, and then forward 1 into low projectile, which some characters can punish, which I found out. Or you could just stagger forward 1, and then that forward 1 stagger is kind of your mix. And then you do forward 1 into the conquest kick. They're trying to take their turn back because they think you're stopping at forward 1. Hit them into... If you don't want to... If you make the read, you can go right into a launcher. If you don't make the read, you can just do like a safe projectile or something just to keep it safe. But also, she's very, very hit confirmable as well. That forward 1, her forward 4, 2, 4, all of her strings are like super hit confirmable. On top of that, you can also hit confirm Shujinko's punch or kick into a launcher or a safe attack, depending on what you hit. So, I mean, it just feels like the two were just made to be together, you know? I don't know.
That forward 1 is a really good button. It has 2 drawbacks, right? It has the flawless block gap if you're going to do the follow-up from it. And the first hit is a high. But if people know that mix is coming and they don't want to guess like the 2-in-1 cancels and all that stuff, that's what always gets me. Right, is that you've got the double cancel window because you can lead it in with the punch or the kick. But like, so people just like, fuck it, I'm just going to armor out of it, right? As soon as they think that like anything's coming, if you're using that forward 1, it's just shredding the armor anyway. No one's getting out of that. Yeah,
and then with her float pressure too, if you do any sort of a jump in, like her jump 3 out of a float or something, she's plus 11, which completely negates that first high. So you're basically going right into a mid on that string, armor breaking mid. And then, of course, hit confirmable into Shujinko. Like, against General Shao, Shujinko steals a low and an overhead. The low is plus 7 on block, and the overhead is minus 7 on block. So, I mean, you can interrupt either of them, but no one ever does. I think by the time you see Shujinko just swinging that big axe, you're just blocking and holding for your life.
So it's so funny you've seen him do stuff like that too, and like he does like your forward throw. So Melina versus whoever Shujinko, that forward throw.
Oh my god,
he just looks so.
He just comes in spiraling in the air. Oh, He's so funny. He's
just rocking that pink.
He's such a comedic character for like such like a somewhat like serious backstory, you know, like coming in and just doing the booty bounce with katana when you go to throw a katana was one of my favorite things. Him donning the shades with Johnny Cage when he does like the hype and then throws the shades at him.
Wearing the Peacemaker
helmet. Yeah. Like
he's the ghoul, the spirit that's hanging you upside down.
Yeah,
in the Ermac matchup.
In Ermac, oh man, I don't know. They did that character so well. I'm sad he's not represented more, but I get it because like again, he is a time sink, and you have to know pretty much every single matchup in the game to specifically with your character and him and what they can do together. So I mean, I get it, but I'm glad that I put in the work with him, and I'm curious to see. I'm just curious to see like part of me switching characters was a little bit more to see if like if Shujinko could make it, you know, if Shujinko could, with a top tier character, the character pick is not an excuse. You know, obviously Shujinko's best pick. How well can he do? I wish Sonic Fox or something would try Shujinko as a better player than me, just so I could really see what kind of potential. I think that I'm bringing him to his top potential with again why I picked Sindel. I think that's his best pairing. But I don't know. I would be curious how the better players than me would make him work in those kind of instances. So I don't really know. There's obviously meta and stuff. You know, we saw the Peacemaker Johnny types of things. So I mean, Shujinko isn't even in the conversation when it comes to those. So I don't really see any top players really picking him up unless maybe, who knows? Maybe I win EVO and everyone's like, oh, Shujinko's the best cameo in the game. Oh. And then I just.
I mean, I could see some players liking him for very specific matchups. Not someone to use all the time, but they've got a pocket Shujinko because, you know, for the Rico matchup or something, or something like that.
I know that Honeybee used him initially against Quan Chi because the scaling on the Bone Dome is insane with Shujinko. I think Sindel can get 1 bar 505 damage.
Wow.
Yeah, against already a low health character.
That's disgusting. That's usually like a 1 bar full cameo fatal blow combo for some characters.
And that's again due to the fact that Sindel has those really long combos that allows Shujinko to start the combo with a Bone Dome. While she's continuing her combo, he charges back up, and then she gets a second Bone Dome at the end of the combo, which allows her to finish with like a forward 4 into overhead or something like that, which
I think one thing about this game, if you have long combos, you're kind of blessed because that's just free cooldown time for your cameos.
Oh, 100%.
Again, we were talking about that a little bit. We talked about it on the podcast before with like sector missiles, right? If you're using the missiles for mix up and you open them up, and that whole time that you're comboing them, you know, he's just sitting there like recharging. You're just that much closer to the next missile.
Yeah, that's true. So, I don't know. That's kind of my thought process on why I specifically chose Sindel. Did I leave any stone unturned? Any point of that I didn't cover? Or I satisfy your question?
You did, and it was like, you know, I'm a surrogate of the audience. I'm asking the people's questions. You know, like I'd heard most of that before, like just in casual conversation, like in passing and stuff. I wanted to say her jump 3. Dude, the way that she lifts up her hurt box as well, like that's such a good button because, like we saw today, it like totally makes things that shouldn't whiff completely whiff at certain jump heights and stuff. That is just so crazy to me.
Yeah, I was playing against Retro a couple days ago because Retro's playing Sindel on the side too, and he's like, "Let me show you why this character's broke." Like, and then started doing all this insane float cancels, and then. I just at some points I just felt like I don't know what to do. Like I up block and then to come back in with something else, and then I don't up block.
You overload people, right? You've only got a couple options from up there, but it's enough. And having to like do that like in the moment and stuff, like you have to have good composure.
Yeah, it was overwhelming to fight against, and that kind of opened my eyes to a whole other part of her, and that's what I've been trying to work on.
Trying to do.
Yeah, adding that in because you add that into her already good staggers and stuff, and already good hit confirms, and you're adding like a plus 11 jump in and pressure on top of all of that is kind of insane. So yeah, I got absolutely whooped in that set. I think I lost 20-2, but the 2 wins I had, I definitely popped off. So I was feeling pretty good about that.
If you walk away learning, sometimes that's really defeating, and sometimes it's just like I don't even give a shit. I like learned so much. I've got so many things to work on. I've got some like good notes or whatever, some like good takeaways, which is like the point of playing, in my opinion, is to be getting the shit kicked out of you to learn and condition yourself, like for Evo to
It's
go
true.
beat strangers.
You never know who you're going to run into. You could play some weird Havoc Darius right off the gate. You never know. You got to be prepared. And I've been saying this for years. It's one of my like favorite lines I like to say, and I tell this to students all the time. A loss is only a loss if nothing is learned. If you're just sitting there and you're giving up and getting your ass beat over and over again, you're not really paying attention to what's happening. You're not going to get any better. It's okay to lose. In fact, it's almost better to lose because I feel sometimes when I win, I don't really go back and I watch my wins. I always watch my losses to kind of see, what I did wrong and where I'm like, okay, yeah, I shouldn't have poked there, shouldn't have poked there. Side note, that's kind of my main problem I'm having with Sindel is I'm so used to having to steal my turn back with Quan that I'm just poking in places that I don't need to with her and getting blown up.
I noticed it all. You're a fucking degenerate for sure. Like he's
wrecked me because you have to with Quan. That's the only way he can get out of things because he's so slow. But I don't have to do that with Sindel, and it gets me blown up a lot. So I'm really trying to rein that back in, and I think that's part of the reason why I don't think I can touch Quan if I'm going to be playing Sindel in this competitive, because I will go back to that mindset, and that's already so hard for me to suppress that. So that's definitely a point that I'm trying to work on for sure.
But back to your previous point, before we move on or wrap up or whatever's about to happen, I want to talk about how you were like learning from matchups, learning from sets and stuff. And if you feel like you're not taking anything away because you didn't learn anything, so all you did was just like hold whatever their game plan was the entire time, like it's a matter of, is it because you don't understand what's going on, right? Like where to take your turn, or you don't understand frame data but you want to get better, stuff like that? Or do you know all of that stuff and it's just annoying or whatever? And if it's the latter, I say that it's time to go for a walk around the block, right? Get up for like at least 20 minutes or whatever, then come back, like clear your mind and reset the brain or whatever. If it's the former, then there's probably some core thing that, you always feel like sometimes, like, I feel like everybody knows something that I don't. And sometimes that is the case, right? Depending on how much exposure you've had to it. And some people are really intuitive about that stuff and others like not so much. So it's like a time for reflection.
Yeah, exactly. And like, even like in the moment, I didn't know what my options were against all the float cancel stuff. So I was just trying things. I was trying to poke in some scenarios, didn't work. Try to armor in some scenarios, didn't work. Trying to move in some scenarios. And then that was really important to me afterwards, because then after Retro and I sat down and kind of went over how every single option works and how it's similar to Katana, where like you can counter her things, but she has 4 different options of what she might do, and you have to just kind of commit to one of the counters.
Yeah, it's a stack. It's the mental stack.
The mental stack, exactly. So, I mean, she could just do the safe float cancel, but you're spending a bar of meter every time. Or she can mix that up and she do the safe cancel, drop right away, and there's a throw right in your face, or cameo, or whatever you want to do. So, it's just like, in the moment, I'm trying to figure out what my options are if I don't know them, just to see, and if something works, like, okay, that works, that's something. But then afterwards, learning how everything works, so I understand why things didn't happen. That's kind of the important thing to me. And, that's why it's good to have good training partners that are willing to help you out with those types of things. Because there's a difference between being like a good teacher and a good player. Not all good players are good teachers, because some will just happily just beat you for 20 games and be like, yeah, GG, see you later, but others will actually
they don't really know how to articulate like what they're doing, right? They're very intuitive about it. It's very instinctual, and they're not overthinking it the way that people that are, the whole bell curve, right? The top level players are not doing this whole, like sitting there with a fucking graphic calculator or whatever to make decisions. Like they're using their game sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it goes the other way too. I'm not the greatest player, but I think I'm one of the better teachers in the NRS community. So, because it's something I like to do, I like to help people, and I know what it's like to to not really know what's going on and having it explained to you in a way that makes sense, especially personalized to how you're playing, makes a huge difference.
And some of it can be like really, really enlightening. Like when you're playing MK11 or MK1 or something, and it's, you know, the mic are like, how are you, like talking to Kelsey? Bro, for real, how do you have a 100% success rate on high versus mid versus throw or whatever? Like you're blocking the button every time, or you're crouching and punishing the throw or the high or whatever, like literally every single time. And it's like, oh, it's an OS, right? A throw comes out in 10 frames. Mids are usually slower than that, and the fastest buttons are high, so you always just don't block first, and then you just you delay block, so you give enough time for the throw to whiff, but then you're blocking the slower mid. And so it's just something that you do every time, and then you're reacting to the whiff throw, and you take it. Like, it was just like, oh my god, like a mushroom cloud coming out of my head. Like, I feel like such an idiot, but it just seems so. Doing it's like another thing, especially in, you know, not dying for it. I feel like it takes a lot of. It's a big part of this meta, though. You have to be good at doing stuff like that if you want to be really competitive in this game, I feel like.
Yeah, that's super important, and the micro ducking and all that kind of thing. Especially with how strong throws are, you know? I mean, outside of being a high that you can duck them, that's probably their only weakness, but they're 50-50s on top to an extent. And I mean, you need your cameo to do forward throws. So sometimes you don't want your cameo for forward throws, like sector missile you were doing to me earlier, and just like shove me into the missile kind of idea.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of, there's a predictability thing to that too, right? Like you throw the missile out, then you're approaching me. You're probably going to do a forward throw shove, or maybe I just read the throw in general, I duck and punish kind of a thing, right? So, I mean, there is some predictability to it, but throws are generally 50-50. Maybe more so in other games than MK1, but I mean, they are a little bit.
Well, it's the tech that's 50-50, and also that they can be ducked at their highs and stuff, like universally. Even the command grabs in this game. But,
yeah.
you know,
I think
Reiko's, it is what it is.
Reiko's is the only one that you can't, but you have to spend 2 bars to do it, which is crazy. Yeah, I don't think he even gets a combo or anything from that either, depending on the cameo.
No,
sure.
Well, with a cameo, yeah, with some cameos he can, I think.
Tremor or Darius, the usual suspects.
The usual suspects, yep.
And then, lastly, I guess before we sign off here, just want to touch on it. I've seen a lot of people talking about how Homelander should be banned for EVO, how the character.
Oh yeah, I meant to talk and bring that up.
Yeah, he's just like, and I have thoughts on that. Like, in my opinion on this is, if it were up to me, if there's no changes that come out for Homelander up until EVO to change him, then yes, I think it would be a smart decision to ban him, because he just doesn't work. Like, he doesn't, like his little flying punch that he can cancel into down one.
The camera glitches.
The camera
put him,
glitches
permanently off screen.
I know, like someone commented on the last podcast, is that he just like disappeared. I clicked on a timestamp and I watched it, and like I think I knocked him down with something and just completely disappeared off the screen for a second.
Yeah, Top Siete just had a post go semi-viral or whatever on Twitter a couple days ago.
I saw that.
Showing, yeah, the same thing. Same
idea. So yeah, I mean, those are the reasons that I like. I guess he's fairly strong as a character too, does decent damage. He's I don't really think that's the reason I would ban him, though. I would ban him because of all the weird camera glitches and like not playing the game. And I think that's the fact that he's like floating kind of, which is weird, because there are, I think, like Ermac, there's some other characters that are similar. Omni-Man can do similar types of stuff, but for some reason he really fucks with the camera. So I don't really know. And like, especially if you're comboing every once in a while.
The camera gets cinematic sometimes, right? It like de-locks so it can switch an angle for certain sorts of animations. I'm sure it's just kind of, you know, early, especially like in the PC port, in the early months of the game, the camera would do all sorts of like weird shit. Like, you know how sometimes like after you say your quote or whatever, and it zooms out, and sometimes like I had times where it just didn't stop zooming, or it finally stopped, right? But the characters were, you know, half the size that they should have been, or somebody's fatal blow does that to the camera, or somebody's back throw cameo sort of combo thing sent things all weird, and now basically the camera's behind the foreground, so I can't see anything because there's a silhouette of bushes there or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, there was
So
a lot of that. There was some of it where like your character would actually drop to like a separate plane when the game first came out. Like
yeah,
it was really weird.
it's like playing an RPG and falling through the earth, right? You
Yeah,
just
totally right. Funny times. But
yeah.
yeah, in my personal opinion, I think he should be banned. Now, do I think he will be banned? No. I really don't think EVO cares enough with the second lowest entrance in their game to really put out a ban for the character. Me as a player, I am hoping that NRS is working furiously in the background to have a fix out for this before EVO, because I just don't see EVO caring that much to actually ban the character. I mean, I'd hope I'm wrong, but I mean,
Well, Rick, the Hadou, he's involved with the Evo now. I think he always has been in some capacity, but he's like has official Evo capacity now, and I think he's genuinely a good dude. And like, no matter the size of the game, right? Like, he's a real. I think he would care. I don't know how it could fit into that schedule and stuff like that, but he definitely think about him and like, yeah, that sucks for you guys if we can't do anything about it, right? How am I supposed to? Am I just you want me to make the decision, just yes or no, like
yeah,
without any of this context and stuff? But I bet he would listen, right? If there's a big enough stink or a big enough like argument presented to him or whatever, I think he's the kind of guy that would listen to that.
I think he would be our saving grace. In my opinion, I was going to bring that up actually. I think he would be the only reason that Homelander would get banned at this event.
I agree. I think he's the only one that would. Traditionally, I think that have been like, yeah, go away, kid, you're bothering me, you know, sort of
Right,
stuff. But
right.
I think he would. I think he would at least like listen.
So I think
I don't know if anything would happen.
it depends how much pull he has, to be honest. If he's like, he makes those types of calls for the game, I think we might get the ban. But I'm trying to be a little bit more of a realist approach and just hoping that NRS is really working on a hot fix to come out to fix some of the broken camera stuff. With at least, even if they fix that, like Homelander still has some problems. Like I think against Kenshi, he still has like a mid-screen infinite or whatever. That would be nice to be fixed. But I mean, the camera stuff is basically like, how embarrassing would it be if your top 8 is all Homelanders and there's just camera glitches all over the place? Like that would be, that would be disastrous.
I would say slightly more embarrassing than Johnny Cage Chameleon and Peacemaker Chameleon mirror matches or any mix and match of, you know, those three or whatever. About a little more embarrassing than that, but not much.
Yeah, no. So I hope that they come out with a fix. I'm not banking on a ban, but I'm definitely learning the Homelander matchup, that's for sure. If anyone who's listening to this is going to EVO, let me know if you're going. You know, I'd like to, you know, kiss some hands and shake some babies, you know? So get to know everybody.
Just look for the Count from Sesame Street.
Oh my God.
He's probably wearing a hoodie.
I probably won't.
He'll be in full penguin cosplay.
I've gotten Gru from Despicable Me. I get the Penguin.
Oh yeah,
all the time. Like if Gru had hair,
you really should. Dude, penguin cosplay would be so easy. You just need like a little gentleman's cap, like a top hat,
yeah,
a monocle, one of those plastic things that you can just put a fake cigarette in, right? The little like mouthpiece they used to use like in the 20s, those old little cigarette mouthpieces. And then you just, you know, a black overcoat and a white shirt. I'll be asking you for pictures. You could put that together before EVO.
I have said that numerous times that in the next Injustice game comes out, if the Penguin is part of the roster, I will cosplay the Penguin at an event. I promise that, and you can hold me to it. Because if he's in a game, I'm maining him. I don't have like a character in that franchise that I really care that much about that I'm maining every single time. So like Penguin comes out, everyone says I look like the Penguin, I'm maining the Penguin.
You really identify with that character, don't you?
I guess I actually don't really know much about him other than he's a bad guy. And he was played by Danny DeVito in one of the older movies. That's about all I know from him. So side note of something funny that happened at Combo Breaker. I was watching Competitor plays his Tekken pool, and they were calling his first match, and he sits down, and then just someone next to him, just in full cosplay, like the really impressive cosplay, just sits down to him, and he just looks over at me. He's like, "I'm not winning this." And then he was right. He got beat down very hard, and then he got up. He's just like, I don't know if it was a mental thing or whatnot, but someone sits down to you in full cosplay. That's intimidating as fuck, especially if they pick that character. It was, oh my God, it was so funny.
like you've really dedicated yourself to the whole lifestyle and everything.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like that would give me an edge if I go to a tournament dressed as a penguin, sit down, pick the penguin. The producer's is like, I'm not winning this.
It'd be just such easy cosplay. I know you can do it before Evo, and it'd be the greatest thing. Like you saying this is the last Evo for X amount of time. I have confidence that you could do it, and you just do it for like just day one, right? They did like just Pools Day or something like
Fool's
that.
Day, just walking around dressed as the penguin.
Yeah, and then wear it again for top 8 out in the crowd or whatever. But I guarantee you, people will be talking about it.
There's just no reference. Like, there's no. It just does. It's just a random ass character. Like, I might as well just freaking cosplay Jake from Adventure Time and show up, right? Like,
you could do that too.
oh thank God, that would be so funny to just cosplay some random character with no reference to whatever games they're playing and just
You
show
should
up.
cosplay as the Count from Sesame Street. Give yourself the little, what do they call that? The devil lock or the little,
Oh,
the little,
yeah.
little point in the front of your hairline there, and then just a little bit of purple powder, face paint or whatever, and then the monocle, and you call it a day. Now just wear a hoodie. You don't even need a cape. People know exactly what's going on. I mean, the purple and the monocle will give it away, but that's the first reference I think somebody made to me about. Maybe you even said that. You had said people had commented
I've gotten that one before.
you being the Count. I can kind of see it.
Why'd you press? That's minus 19.
Yeah. Exactly.
That could be fun. That could be a fun time.
We need Dark Dink cosplaying the Count from Sesame Street. Or Dark Dink cosplaying Penguin. Come on.
That's too easy. That's way too easy. I thought about, Dark Dink making an appearance. I just don't know how well I could play in sunglasses. That's all. I don't know.
Well, you should bring a second pair of sunglasses with no lenses, and it'll just lean into the meme if you're having trouble.
So funny. Oh my God! Just no, just shaped like pit vipers or something, but with no lenses.
And you can just walk around. Just, don't look at me! Don't look at me in the face!
Don't look at me. Oh, so many ideas. The prescription. I do want to say that although this is probably my last EVO, this will not be my last offline event. As long as EVO is staying in Vegas, I just don't have any interest in going there anymore. There's a couple people.
You don't like Las Vegas? In the middle of summer? In the middle of the desert? In the middle of the summer is not an enjoyable experience?
It just doesn't do it for me, like...
Where the air's so hot, you can feel it singeing the whatever follicles you have on the inside of your lungs, and it's just like a pure discomfort to even exist outdoors.
And then you want a water? Yeah, $15 for a tiny bottle of water. Here you go. Like
Las Vegas, baby.
Oh, the Vegas dream. I've heard rumors that they're going to be moving EVO to Saudi Arabia anyways, so maybe it's a good thing. That's what I've heard.
No way.
I guess they have money.
There's a lot of money out there right now. All right, there's like literal $1 million tournaments that they're hosting for some Street Fighter stuff, or for a bunch of stuff. It's for the esports World Cup or whatever they're calling it, like just millions and millions of dollars. So they're definitely trying to get into the mix, and if EVO's into it, that'd be crazy, because EVO is kind of seen as like an international tournament. It was like back in the day, that's when you finally got to play against all the Japanese players and stuff, right? Everyone comes to Las Vegas for EVO. That's where for everyone from all over the world travels. So
EVO,
that would be interesting to see it leave.
EVO 2012.
Las Vegas got to be so expensive to host there too.
EVO 2012, I remember, was huge for Mortal Kombat because they had the first EVO in 2011, and that was kind of like the first time that a lot of people really saw MK on that stage. And then in 2012 was when the Condiment Twins came over with Foxy Grandpa, and that was the very first time that UK versus North America kind of a thing, right? That was huge.
Like where it was born.
Yeah, they had Used for Glue was there as well, and that was, I just remember that being such an iconic. He was a core
part of that P&D group back then, right? Like Ketchup, Mustard, and Used for Glue, and Foxy. They were all training partners and stuff.
Yep, and I remember Foxy definitely having the best showing. I think he made top 16 that year, which was pretty huge.
Who did he play, Molina?
Johnny Cage, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he might have played a little bit of Molina, but I'm remembering Johnny Cage because I played some casuals there. And then I remember it was a huge deal because Mustard refused to do the Cyrax resets, the the unblockable bomb setups that he
Well,
had in that game.
He has too much honor.
But then he was just about to get eliminated in losers, and then he hit somebody with it. Everyone popped off like, "Wow, sell out!" Blah blah blah. It was so funny.
That's pretty. Hey, you got to do what you got to do, right? Like
yeah.
at the last moment or whatever. He made it that far without it. I respect the man.
Totally. I think this was like to get out of his pool in losers or something like that. And then it was he didn't do it the whole time, and you could just see like at the moment he's just like I can't not do it right now. I'm gonna be eliminated, and then he did. So that was some good moments.
That's funny. Was Sonic there? That's when Sonic first played MK9, right? Like leading up to Injustice, or was Injustice the first Sonic game?
Sonic did play
I
that
know
game.
They played Melina in MK9.
Yeah, Sonic was not at that EVO because I think the grand finals was Perfect Legend and CD Junior, if I remember correctly. And Perfect
and the
Legend
next year was Injustice 1, year 1, right? 2013.
Yeah.
So MK9 was probably just there too.
Yeah, and I don't think Sonic Fox was at that one either, because that one was the one that KDZ won with Superman, and everyone was booing him because Superman's lasers were so good. He just literally just spammed lasers the whole time. And everyone was just boo. It was really funny.
And he doesn't care. You got to do what you got to do, right?
A win's
That's
a
like
win.
What you're talking about.
A dub's a dub. So who knows what top 8 will look like this year? But
I mean, that's going to be Homelander in a couple of weeks here.
That's what I'm thinking. Eye lasers. You know, I got Dark Dink commentary track coming up.
Yeah.
Top 8 review. Eye lasers. Eye lasers. Over and over, nonstop. But I could go on.
The soundboard.
Oh, I do need a soundboard. I'm going to look into that. I have no idea how complicated that is / isn't. But that would make my streams a lot more fun, I think. But that's about it for me. All my EVO stuff, my EVO prep. We went on some fun little side conversations there. I wasn't expecting to go on.
Yeah, have fun with those timestamps there, Dean. Sorry to everyone else in advance. We were kind of all over.
Yeah, we get talking. I think that's just why people enjoy listening to us, you know? That's why they come back week after week, hour after hour, whatever that song is. That I don't know the rest of it. There's something like that. I don't know.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I should stop ranting before I go on too far. Thanks again, Hater, for another week. I'm excited we got to talk on my EVO prep here. So appreciate you making the time.
Thanks for having me as always.
And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like because it really helps me out, and subscribe if you haven't, because I make new videos almost every single day. Hashtag Bonehawks, all that stuff, and we'll see all you Bonehawks in the next video.
Accept your death.